geometric form generates the canon of sacred number. And 10 minutes left. What do I want to cover in 10 minutes? Some of this you've seen already, so I'm just going to speed through it, and you can just absorb as much as you can. $108's a really cool number, by the way. How many of you have ever done Hindu meditation? Mala beads? Using how many beads are on the mala? 108, that's right. Why is that? There's your answer right there. It's one of the sacred numbers, 108. See, 108 allows you to regulate the tempo of your breath and your mantra repetition with the cosmic cycles. And that's the whole idea. That's the whole idea.
Is the idea also that your brain can assimilate the energy?
Yes, because your brain is operating at certain fundamental frequencies. And those frequencies are the frequencies we find embedded in nature. Sound vibrations, color vibrations. In fact, the whole universe could be thought of as a constructively interfering set of wave patterns with a whole set of various vibrational frequencies. And these vibrational frequencies are manifesting these perfect geometric ratios.
In the beginning was the Word. That's what it refers to.
In the beginning was the Word, and this is what Randy is talking about, is that ultimate vibratory frequency of which so you have the Word, which is like the ultimate vibratory frequency, and then all of the rest of the manifested universe are simply sub-multiples of that ultimate wavelength. And if you shift, see, and this is part of it, when you do your mantra in meditation, you're doing a conscious phase shift. So what you're trying to do is shift the frequency, the wave, the amplitude, and wavelength of your own consciousness, so you shift it slightly to where its frequency falls into harmony with a greater wavelength. Because you know what happens when a small wave constructively interferes with a bigger wave, it piggybacks right on top of the thing. That's how radio works. You know, radio works because you have a sound frequency that's superimposed upon a larger amplitude carrier wave. And that's what you're doing. You're basically superimposing the wavelength, the microcosmic wavelength of your limited consciousness onto the back of a much larger frequency. And you also do this through the study of geometry, through sacred geometry. You do it through music. You know, you do it through chanting. You do it through meditation, because in meditation, until you get to that ultimate still point that coincides with the center of the circle, you're doing a mantra repetition. The mantra repetition that I do has 6 syllables, for example, corresponding to those 6 points around the circle. And if you do 6 times 108, by the way, you discover that 648 syllables every time you do a repetition of your mantra beat. 648 repetitions of the syllable, right there, 6,480 years. I just do that in case anybody dozed off momentarily. And here we have the tetrahedron. 4 equilateral triangular faces, 4 times 180 is 720. We're going to go through this quick. The cube, I've already introduced you to that and the numbers associated with that. The octahedron, there's your 1440. The icosahedron, 3600. And your dodecahedron at 6,480, which is the length of the season of the great year. And then your 2 intersecting tetrahedra, which is your star tetrahedra, again, 1,440 degrees. And then we look at astrological time cycles, and we discover that every one of those numbers has its correlate counterpart in the measure of sacred time. And I wish we had more time to spend on this, but we don't. But over here, we have a whole set of these sacred numbers, 14,400, 28,800, 43,200. Remember I said at the moment of spring equinox, if you're on the right position on the earth, you'd have exactly 43,200 seconds of light on one side and 43,200 seconds of dark on the other side. 43,200. It shows up right here. It shows up in many, many ways. And that's why I was saying, once you've worked with these numbers and you've learned this relatively small set of numbers, which is really probably not greater than what most people already know, given that, you know, you've got your social security number and your phone numbers that you know and your address, it's really no harder than learning what you've already learned. But once you've learned those numbers, see, now you have this incredible mnemonic device for accessing this whole realm of phenomena, measuring cosmic time and cosmic space.
How can you sleep at night?
Who? Who said I did? I lay awake at night and the wheels turn. And no, I like to get my 7.2 hours of sleep. Exactly. Okay, so we would spend more time on this because this is, this, as it says here, the celestial sphere. This is the basis for the whole thing that I've already shown you. This is our key point right here, and it's that point that's rotating around to 25,920 years. See, now to me, there's a practical application of this knowledge, because getting back to the idea of this tempo of global change, that's one area where I have really gone into great detail on studying practical manifestations of this knowledge. And what we discover, interestingly, is that, yes, here I have put that wheel of time. The wheel of time has all of the succession of time cycles on it, so that this would be the point, let's say, where we're at now, at the cusp of Pisces Aquarius. And as we go back in history, 2,160 years, 4320, 6480, going all the way around, we come back to the 0 point 25,920 years ago. So 25,920 years ago, the Earth was entering the former age of Aquarius. 25,920 years hence, it will be entering the next age of Aquarius. Halfway through the cycle, 12,960 years ago, give or take a few decades, the vernal equinox was passing out of the age of Virgo into the age of Leo. Now, right on the cusp of Leo, something so extraordinary happened that the vast majority of the human race, including even scientists that studied it, have not grasped the significance of it yet. One of my most important and profound programs deals with what happened right here. Because what it has to do, the significance of it is that it teaches us about the nature of these global changes. And it's those global changes that we have to understand in order to successfully prosper into the future. It's the ignorance of these cycles and what they portend that will guarantee a disastrous future. But regardless of what people say about 2012, or what people say about, you know, the hysteria and the belief that we've got some foreordained doom, no, we don't. We don't. Let me emphasize that. 2012 does not, I haven't seen the movie yet, but that's not going to happen on 2012, December 21st. However, that's not to say that so far what I've seen in the movie may not be that unlike what has actually happened, and in fact what did happen as the vernal equinox transited into the sign of Leo. And again, that's what happened?
Pretty close to the sinking of Atlantis.
Plato gave the sinking of Atlantis as 9,000 years before Solon's exile to Egypt. Solon lived 600 BC. So do the math. 600 BC would be 2,600 years ago. 9,000 years prior to that would be 11,600, which puts us pretty much right in the middle of the age of Leo. Now, you may be interested to know that I have the definitive program on Atlantis. If you want to know about Atlantis, I have a whole slideshow that I do. It's a special program where I focus just on Atlantis. And we take Plato's two dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, and we go through them line by line. And then we look at what modern science has done to prove that Plato was right on the money. And all of the stuff you've read about Atlantis in the last 30 years, placing it in the Mediterranean, placing it in Turkey, placing it in Antarctica, no. Because every one of those, in order to create their theories, has had to abandon Plato. I maintain that Plato was right on the money. So I go right to the source. And I mostly forget, other than a few commentators like Proclus and Diodorus of Sicily and a few others, I go to the original source, which is Plato, which is 98% of what we know about Atlantis. So in the couple of minutes that we have left, I'm just going to show you, this is one program that I do specifically on the Great Year. And in this program, I get into discussing what actually transpires in that course, the turning of the wheel.